Hello everyone, Katarina here. Sorry for my voice, my cold is just not going away. We are on a Christmas card number 11, and for this card I originally planned only to use Nuvo Shimmer powders, but when I did my trial card I accidentally created another version of the card, and therefore I decided to also include the Brusho powders in this video as well, since they are both watercolors in powder version. So I thought it's nice to see how they look side by side. I also will be using embossing folder with Snowflakes and Merry Christmas die from MFT. So let's start. I decided to use the powders because I wanted to create a watercolor background, and I think these powders are great for it. I have 5 of the Nuvo Shimmer powders and I will be using 4 of them. The list of the exact colors you can find on my blog and in the supply list in the description below. I put 2 panels of a watercolor cardstock on top of a board and I secured them with washi tape. Then I used my spray bottle and I sprayed a generous amount of clean water across the panel. And then I started adding the powder. I'm starting here with the Nuvo Shimmer powders. To get the powder out, I just squeeze the bottle. You can also tap on the top of the bottle and get the powder out this way. And as the powder touches the water, it starts dissolving and making really beautiful burst look. You might need to add additional water or use a brush to help it spread around. It just depends how much powder you get out and how much water you have on the cardstock. I will play a little bit of music to show you the whole process of creating the background and see you in a bit. For the Brusho powders, I try to pick colors that are similar to the Nuvo colors, except of the pink there are good matching colors. There's actually no pink in the pack I have, so I used the scarlet instead, and I applied it exactly the same way as on the panel before. As you can see, the first difference between the powders is the bottles they come in. To be honest, both bottles are pretty bad in my opinion, but at least the bottles of the Brusho powders, you have the option to pierce the lids of the bottles. You can see the 3 dots on the lids. I pierced 3 holes, which is something I saw other crafters do as well. This way you will get less powder on the paper and have more control how intense you want the colors to be. Because the powders are very saturated and you don't need too much powder to make it really bold. The next difference is that, and you already know this from the name of the Nuvo powders, there is a shimmer in those powders which makes the colors sparkly and shiny once they are dry. The Brusho powders do not have any shimmer, but if I wanted to add some shimmer, I think I could just add the Perfect Pearls powder into my spray bottle. I think that would work the same way and I will try it in the future. What I noticed on the Brusho powders was that the powder wasn't melting, and I needed to go in with my brush quite a lot to get the color moving. I did few videos at the beginning of autumn using these powders, and there I didn't have any problems. I think the reason for it is humidity. It's really humid, especially right now in Ireland. And with the bottles pierced and I'm storing them in the box they came in, it might be that it was just too humid for the powders. Now they are packed in a sealed container, so I hope it will get better. Anyways, after I was finished, I let the panels dry. I made 4 panels altogether. Here you can see them side by side. On the left there are the ones with Nuvo Shimmer powders. You can see how shimmery and sparkling they are. And on the right are the ones where I used the Brusho powders. The color is definitely more matte. I die cut all the panels using a stitched rectangular die, and I also die cut the sentiments. I'm making 2 different styles of cards. For both styles I'm using the Merry Christmas die from MFT. And for the first style, I die cut 4 of the sentiments from white cardstock, and for the second style, I will be using inlaid die cutting. So I die cut the sentiment right in the middle of the panel, making sure I kept all the pieces that are part of the die cut. Next, I use the embossing folder from Eco Park with Snowflakes. It's called Frosty Snowflakes embossing folder. And this is the reason why I ended up with two different cards. When I first embossed the panel, I put it the wrong way and I actually debossed the snowflakes, so they were pushed down, not up. Normally the companies put their logo on the folder that is going to be facing up when you run it through the die cutting machine, but this one doesn't have any markings. You should be able to figure out without it, but I don't use the embossing folders that often, so I always forget. Anyways, I like the result and that's why I'm making two cards today. And here you can see in detail, this is the panel where I used the folder correctly, the snowflakes are raised. And here you can see the other panel with the snowflakes pushed down. For the debossed snowflakes, I used the panel where I used the shimmer powders and the white die cut sentiment. First I adhered a double-sided tape on the back of the panel and then I adhered all the die cut boards together. To adhere the individual die cuts, I used the Zig 2-way glue pen just because it's easy to apply, but to adhere on top of the panel, I used the multi-medium adhesive from Ranger, which is very good and strong glue. And for the other panel, I first cut down a piece of cardstock and glued it on the back of the panel. I used a double-sided tape for most of it, but around the die cut board, I used the glue pen. I found it to be easier this way, making sure that the whole thing is glued properly. And I put an acrylic block on top of it so the glue dries properly. And in the meantime, I adhered the dot above the eye on the other panel. And I also used the Wink of Stella shimmer pen to add some sparkle to the die cut sentiment. Then I returned back to the other panel and I already glued together 3 die cuts from white cardstock. And for the 4th layer, I used the die cut sentiment that I die cut from the panel earlier. I glued those on top of each other and then I inlaid the die cut back in. The last step in this video is to adhere the panels on top of white card bases. I decided not to add any embellishments. I think this card doesn't need anything else. And here are all the cards together. I made for each design 2 cards. I really like how the cards turned out. You can see how sparkly the Nuvo Shimmer powders are, but I actually prefer the Brusho powders, simply because they are more versatile. If you want to have a sparkle, I'm sure adding perfect pearls into the water would make it shimmery, but I like to have the option without the sparkles. However, that's what Nuvo products are all about, shimmer, glitter and sparkle, right? And I'm glad I have made a mistake and debossed the snowflakes. I really like both versions of the cards. I hope you like these cards as well. If you want more inspiration, on the left of the screen you can select the card number 11 from last year. I made a simple snowy sky and I used the same die cut sentiment as on today's cards. And on the right, you can check out other card also from last year with a very cool background technique. Thank you all so much for watching. Merry Christmas to you all. And I will see you in my next video, which is going to be the last video in this series. So I hope you will come back. Bye!